Welcome back. Nora Nickum is the Senior Ocean Policy Manager at the Seattle Aquarium, leading ocean conservation policy work with legislation.
Yeah, and on top of that, she's also an author. Her new book, Superpod, Saving the Endangered Orcas of the Pacific Northwest, introduces young readers to the lives of these fascinating whales and the dedicated people that are working to save them. So joining us to share more about her work, Nora Nickum.
Hello. Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in here. So you focus on southern resident orcas. Tell us all about them and kind of how they've inspired your work.
Yeah, so the southern resident orcas are local salmon-eating orcas. There are 73 of them. They all have names. They can all be told apart by the pattern on their back and the size of their dorsal fin and other things. They have family, they make friends, and they're just kind of our local neighbors. And I grew up watching them, spending time out on beaches, kind of with my ear tuned to hear the sound of an orca blow and realize that they were nearby and be able to watch them. And they're not doing very well. They are critically endangered, so now I'm working to do my best to help them recover.
I think that your connection to that is beautiful, and you're also an author. In fact, you have written Superpod, Saving the Endangered Orcas of the Pacific Northwest. So tell us about the book and how it is that you want to lean into hope and what people can do to improve the situation.
Yeah, so Superpod is a book for kids and teens in particular, and I'm working to introduce kids to these whales if they don't already know them, but I think even kids who already love these whales will find a lot of new things in this book. And just help them get to know them, build that emotional connection, because that is what kind of inspires us all to help them, you know, get on the road to recovery. So I share a lot of information about the whales, but also all the people who are working to help them. There are vets, there are scientists, artists, educators who are all doing amazing things to try and help these animals.
Oh, that almost reminds me of like Mr. Rogers when he says, like, when difficult things happen, look for the helpers. Yeah. So I love that you like lean into that positive side of things too.
There are a lot of helpers, yeah, and I picked the title Superpod because that's what, when the three pods, JK and L pod, come together, it's like a family reunion. It's an underwater party. They're splashing, they're socializing, there's a lot of calling and noises. That's called a Superpod, but I also think of that human community of helpers as a kind of Superpod.
Beautiful. Oh, that's awesome. And I know you also do policy work with the Seattle Aquarium. Tell us all about what you're doing there.
Yeah, well, so right now in Olympia, we're advocating for funding for things like salmon habitat restoration so that there can be healthier salmon populations to feed the orcas, but also support all the human communities that rely on salmon and the broader ecosystem. We're also advocating for funding for a program called Quiet Sound that's been working to reduce the impacts of large commercial ships on the orcas. So those ships make a lot of noise, and it's hard for the orcas to communicate with each other and to use sound to find salmon when there's a lot of noise. So Quiet Sound got a bunch of ships just in the last several months to slow down voluntarily when in these waters, because that makes the waters quieter. So we're just looking for more funding for that kind of program.
Awesome. So I think that when we look at the problems in our environment and the situation with the orcas being so worrisome, I think there's a tendency for just the average person to feel really down about that. Is there something that somebody just outliving their lives can do to improve the situation?
Yeah, there are lots of things. I mean, for kids, I'd say, you know, talk to people about these whales, talk about endangered species, help them get to know what these animals are like and that they're worth saving. But there are things we can do with our purchasing decisions, like choosing sustainable seafood so that we're not buying fish that's getting depleted, picking up litter that we see on the beach, making sure it doesn't go out in the ocean, and contacting legislators and asking them to support the kinds of bills and policies that can help these whales.
And when you say sustainable seafood, how do you know if some is sustainable or not?
Yeah, so there's a great guide called Seafood Watch where you can look up the specific kind of seafood that you're considering buying, and it gives you a rating for whether or not it's sustainable.
Okay, there you go. So you just do a little bit of extra work and then you can really help make a change there.
Yeah.
You also have some book signing events coming up. Tell us about those. Where can people get a copy of your book? Talk to you about your work, all that.
Yeah, so the book is available pretty much anywhere you can buy books, online and in stores. I'm doing a book signing on Sunday, April 16th at the Seattle Aquarium, and so when people come there, they can also come check out all the other animals that are there to see. And then a really fun event on April 29th at the Museum of History and Industry. That's a panel with an orca expert and a high school volunteer for the Seattle Aquarium. And all of those are available on my website at noranickum.com, and there's going to be a bunch of events around the region if you can't make it to those.
That is so awesome. Now, you did share with us that this book is kind of leaning more towards kids and teens, but talk to me about how it could really be read by anybody, because I think sometimes, at least for me, a lot of this stuff can go over my head and feel like super big and complicated. Sometimes I think that books like this are really just an excellent way of simplifying things for everybody.
Yes, and I definitely don't talk down to kids in this either, so I think that also it just respects kids as they're smart, they're clever, they don't need, you know, things to be simplified too much, but trying to make the science digestible and interesting and bringing in conversations with a lot of the people who are involved with trying to help these whales, from people who are eavesdropping on them using underwater hydrophones, which are like microphones, hearing what their calls sound like, people who are using drones to study them from the air, and that's how you see what's happening under the water, how are they connecting with each other. So bringing in those stories and really making it all digestible and making the science fun.
Yeah. Before we started filming here, you were telling us a little bit about microplastics and plastics in the ocean and how we can do a little bit better when it comes to helping the animals that way. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we're trying to cut back on single-use plastics in particular, because there are a lot of more sustainable alternatives, things that are compostable, recyclable, reusable, and just prevent this stuff from getting out into the environment in the first place. Once it's out there, you know, some animals mistake it for food, or they get tangled up in it and it's full of toxic chemicals. So if we can keep it, you know, just avoid buying things in the first place that use a lot of plastic, that'll help keep it also out of the environment.
And then what are some single-use plastics? So like water bottles, takeout containers, what else?
Water bottles, yeah, utensils, straws, but also just thinking about packaging. So when you go to the store, can you buy things in bulk instead of coming in, you know, a plastic
Like a little,
clamshell
Really
package?
smart. Yeah.
Yes, I've heard that a lot of that stuff is called wish cycling, so people think they can recycle it, but they actually cannot.
Right. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we really appreciate your time here today, educating us and helping us better prepare our children to understand these things, because you know what, in the future, they're the ones that are going to be dealing with all of this as well.
Yeah.
That's true.
Thanks so much, Nora.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've got more info on her book, Superpod, and upcoming signing events up on our website, fox13seattle.com/studio13live.